Megan Rapinoe responds to Draymond Green regarding the gender wealth gap. We also have record number of migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border illegally, and a student is suspended for just questioning the idea of microaggressions. And I have a lot to say about that. Before we get into our lead story today, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really does help the algorithm push my video out there to viewers who have not seen my content or my channel. And also, if you enjoy the type of content that is being presented through the Bald Brad Show, please take a moment also to hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button, because it will notify you whenever we upload a video, which is every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our lead story of the day comes from our friends over at the Daily Wire. It is written by Joe Morgan. And as always, if you're not a subscriber over at the Daily Wire, please go over there now and become a member today. It is titled, Megan Rapinoe Takes Aim at Draymond Green After He Questions Gender Wage Gap in Sports. And if you hadn't seen the previous episode when I reported on this, what happened was Megan Rapinoe is basically complaining that women's sports aren't getting paid as much as men's sports. Thus, there's some sort of issue going on with the wage gap, and basically these athletic sports franchises are basically being sexist, is what she's saying. And you have Draymond Green here being asked a question by a reporter, and he's saying, look, all they're going to say is the revenue's not there. You're not bringing in as much money as the male sports are, such as the MLB, the NHL, the NBA. Thus, you're not going to receive the same type of salary as they are. And you need to come up with steps and procedures that are going to be put in place to where you can bring in that type of revenue and thus get paid more money. So this is Megan Rapinoe's response here in this article. It starts off by saying, United States women's national team star Megan Rapinoe struck back at Golden State Warriors forward Draymond Green after his comments on gender pay gap and a supposed lack of investment in women's sports. Green, a three-time NBA All-Star, posted a series of tweets questioning the narrative that female athletes were paid less due to gender discrimination. In his mind, the discrepancy is due to a lack of revenue. And I'm fully on board on that. I think it is due to a lack of revenue. Are there some animals out there that are discriminating against women? I'm sure they're out there. But if you bring in the revenue and you can show the numbers to your boss of this is what I'm bringing in and this is what I'm worth, there's no reason as to why you shouldn't get paid worth that. Now, again, there is more discussion that needs to be had based on those numbers, because just because you calculated those numbers doesn't mean, one, they're true, and two, that you are still worth that amount of money. So again, just kind of, that was more of an in general comment or opinion that I was making based on that. It is said here, I've seen a lot of talk about the pay gap between women and men, especially in sports. It's not even close, but let's stop allowing y'all complaints to fall on deaf ears due to numbers. As long as y'all make the argument about pay while the revenue stays the same, they will continue to point to revenue not being high enough to cover bigger salaries. While that is true in damn near every business, how do you take that card out of their pockets? That's the key to changing the pay. He's absolutely right. I don't see anything wrong with that post that he's making. Break the mold and change the game. Most importantly, change the business, Green continued. Call on these companies for support. After all, they are using y'all to push women empowerment, but not helping you all. They're simply saving face. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I mean, they're pushing women empowerment, but I mean, you are a pro athlete as a woman. So I'm confused here as what the problem is it's so interesting that the left complains constantly about how greedy these capitalistic companies are, or these mega companies like Coca-Cola, Walmart, blah, 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 how greedy they are. But then you have a woman here, or women, or just athletes in general, doesn't matter the gender whatsoever, that are constantly asking for more pay. My question is that where's the greed in that respect? So whenever we apply greed to one area, we don't want to apply it to the other area. And that's the leftist narrative for you. It completely falls apart just in a single thought. So, and Green is right, though. It has to do with revenue. If you don't have the revenue, then how are you going to be able to pay the expenses of your players, or the salary of your players? Green's tweet comes days after an interview in which he claimed to be really tired of seeing them complain about the lack of pay because they're doing themselves a disservice by just complaining. And in the clip that I showed in the previous video, you had the person that's doing what seemed to be the interview saying, well, they're not just complaining. But the thing is, you are just complaining because you're not presenting anything to your boss about how you're going to bring in more revenue to basically make the claim of how much you should be getting paid. So it's to me, it's very simple. This isn't like a big, massive philosophical idea out here on how you can get paid more money. This is very basic, and you have Megan Rapinoe here in a little bit basically not making a good case on why the WNBA or whatever female sport is being presented in the argument should be getting paid more money. As ESPN reported on a Zoom call with reporters ahead of the Tokyo Olympics this summer, Rapinoe made her thoughts clear on Green's tweets. So here we go. It is really unfortunate in the position Green's in, having all of the resources that he has and the ability to have a much more educated opinion that he just hasn't, said Rapinoe, and then drag all these other people into it by tagging them and speaking at a time when the tournament is going on, and all we saw with the lack of resources and funding. That's frustrating. That's the take you have. You obviously showed your whole blank, I think it's ASS, and not even understanding what we all talk about all the time, WNBA players and us on the national team. Like what Sue Bird said, you tagged the wrong people. You don't think we ask for more money? ? I mean, what are we screaming about nonstop? No, he's saying that even if you do complain and ask for more money, that the revenue is not there. This is not complicated. And you see, I don't want to say she's uneducated because I frankly don't know enough about Megan Rapinoe, but clearly she doesn't know how business works. And all I've seen from her on the podium is her complaining about the pay gap between genders. So if you want to close that gender gap, which I don't believe that there is one in the grand scheme of things, again, in the big picture, obviously in sports, there is a gender pay gap, but that is because LeBron James is selling more damn jerseys than you are, Megan. And he's also bringing a hell of a lot more people to those games than you are, or the Sparks. I think they're still called the Sparks, right? Where the Lakers play out of, but that's beside the point. It goes on to say, we are getting obnoxious. We're getting obnoxious to ourselves, to be honest, Rapinoe went on to add, and then 2 or 3 days later to completely double down on it is really frustrating. We all know this about all social movements and all people who are marginalized, whether it's by race or gender, religion, sexuality, whatever it is, exactly, whatever it is. You're absolutely right. Whatever the narrative is for that year, for that day, for that time, we're just going to throw it in there and complain about it. It is not just their jobs to the ones fighting oppression. I don't understand how you're oppressed when you are making a ton of money as a professional sports athlete, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. You're complaining about that somebody's making more money than you. There will always be somebody making more money than you because usually there will be a tendency that somebody is going to be better at a specific thing than you are. There's a lot more people making a ass ton more money than me on YouTube, doing the exact same show, probably doing it better than me. Some not doing it as better than me and getting paid more money than I am. Heck, I'm not even making any money off YouTube or Rumble or whatever it is that I'm posting on. You don't see me complaining about it. I'm just thankful to have a platform to talk to. Whether people like it or not like it, I get enjoyment out of it. You should just get enjoyment out of the sport you play rather than trying to get paid as much as the other gender is. And my question is that what's the other gender you're talking about? I thought the left doesn't talk in terms of gender. I thought it's all fluid, right? You could just be whatever you want nowadays. It's not zeros and ones. You're not male or female. So what gender are you talking about here? Can we be more specific? Of course, I'm being facetious, but it goes on. We need all of the other people as well. So to have someone who does know what it's like to be oppressed in many ways, to heap that all back on female players or people who play female sports, it is really disappointing. And it goes on with a bunch of tweets here, but I wanted to give you an update on a prior story that I covered. And here you have it. Megan Rapinoe takes aim at Draymond Green after he questions gender wage gap in sports, and rightfully so. If you're going to complain about it, then at least be open about it, that I'm just upset that I'm not getting paid as much. But at no point, at least from what I've seen, and let me know in the comments if you've seen it, I've never seen her bring points about how to bring in more revenue to whatever sport one is playing or to the team that she's playing. So it's just, at the end of the day, it's just you complaining about not getting paid enough money, and you're shouting to the sky and hoping that maybe the public pressure on these companies will somehow pay you more money. I don't know, but to me, you're not as worth as much as, say, LeBron James or somebody else. Maybe you are as worth just as much as, I know she plays soccer. I'm just trying to equate again, soccer player to somebody that I know that's in the NBA, but I don't know any soccer players. I knew Beckham back in the day, but other than that, I mean, you're just not as worth as I'm sure somebody else. Now, maybe you're making more money than some male athletes are. At that point, then there is no gap, right? You're making just as much as they are. So it's a little confusing on how you're calculating all this, even as a teacher of mathematics. I don't know how they're calculating all this. And again, in the big picture, I know I'm repeating myself. Does men's sports make more than women's sports? Absolutely. You're trying to close the gap artificially by having public pressure in there. That's not how you run a business. The businesses will go under for that. And that's my 2 cents regarding that story. Now, an update on another story here. This also comes from Emily Zanotti of the Daily Wire. It is titled Crisis, Record Number of Migrants Taken into Custody at Southern Border in March. Highest number of child migrants ever recorded. Yes, ever recorded. So there's no problem here, folks. It's just a challenge. It's not a crisis. We don't call it that. Remember, that's Jen Psaki and the Biden administration slogan. It's just a challenge. It's not a crisis. Folks, we are hitting record numbers that have never been recorded. And they're just kind of not a big deal. What's the big deal that we're having 19,000 migrant children in our custody and keeping them longer than 72 hours? We're keeping them over a week at times. So nothing to see here, folks. Typical left. Remember that guy, I think it was from MSNBC or CNN or something like that, where he was like, oh, well, the protests are mostly peaceful. And there's just Mobtail cocktails going off. The buildings are on fire behind the dude. And he's just acting like nothing's happening. That's what goes on in the left's mind. They believe nothing's happening. It's no big deal. So it starts off here. Emily starts off by saying United States Customs and Border Protection reported a record number of illegal immigrants taken into custody at the U.S.-Mexico border in March. So these numbers are in March, folks. So I just want to preface that. The most is nearly 2 decades, according to an official release. The number includes 19,000 child migrants, the largest monthly number ever recorded. And this is according to the Chicago Tribune. CBP released the numbers on Thursday showing 172,331 people taken into custody for trying to jump the United States southern border. A chart from the Washington Post, I'll post it here, posted to social media shows just how shocking and unprecedented the number is compared to previous years. CBP, the outlet notes, had to redo the chart and stretch the y-axis. The y-axis is the vertical axis, if you don't remember. The x-axis is the horizontal one. Coming as a math teacher. It just comes naturally at this point. Forgive me, that would have been just been even done a reflex because I'm used to talking about the y and x-axis. In order to effectively demonstrate the numbers of migrants. So basically, they had to increase the vertical number of migrants. It will show the migrant numbers on the left-hand side because originally there wasn't enough space on the graph to include it. So they basically had to zoom out the graph and increase the y-axis and a little bit of the x-axis just to include the amount of migrants that are illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. That's how bad things have gotten. 172,000 people. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what 172,000 people looks like in a month? You can't even imagine it. That's how crazy it is. And again, I shared in previous videos that when I was in Vegas working, I have a buddy that knows a lot of border protection people, and he's friends with them. And so they were sending him videos with their cell phones of these people just lined up, and you're seeing thousands of people at a time, guys. This isn't a small thing. And I reported, once I saw those videos, I already knew this was a big deal. But when you see people lined up in mass droves, it changes the dynamic of things. It makes it, a lot more tangible rather than just picturing 172,000 or 6,000 people or even 1,000 people for that matter. When you're seeing these people lined up and they're with their children or some of them not with their children, it's one, it is heartbreaking, but two, it just shows the magnitude of the problem that we're having at the U.S.-Mexico border, and it's an emergency. It's a crisis, and I know the Biden administration doesn't want to call it that, but that's what it is. The Washington Post, the leftist news outlet, also noted that the new numbers seem to contradict the Biden administration's stated excuse that the border situation is no different than in previous years. And so when you have the leftist media going, holy crap, this is really bad, then that tells you how bad it is and how bad the Biden administration is controlling the situation at our border. And you also have here the Biden administration saying, oh, well, it's not as bad as what we've seen in previous years. And you've seen Joe Biden talk about this. The guy is lying throughout his just whatever press conference he's running. Any moment he has a time to be on camera and read from that teleprompter, he's lying to the American public. It says here, U.S. agents took more than 171,000 migrants into custody last month, the month of March, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection figures that contradict Biden's claims that his administration is facing an influx no different from previous years. Biden is a liar. They spent years saying Trump was a liar. They spent years saying Trump was a racist. They spent years saying Trump was this and that for putting people into cages, building the border wall, putting in policies that are going to stop people from coming over here illegally. And he was chastised up and down for years for doing the exact same thing. But you have Biden here lying to the American public constantly, doing things that are worse than the Trump administration did. And he is not being chastised. He is not being called a liar. He's not being called a racist. He's not being called any of the things that Trump was. He's running his press conferences like it's scripted. He knows the reporters that he's going to ask on. He's receiving these questions beforehand. The questions are written down. He has the stuff memorized. It's all fake. We're living in like the Truman Show, basically. But, you know, the reporters aren't going to treat Joe Biden and Jen Psaki the same way that they treated Trump or any of his press secretaries, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Sean Spicer, Kayleigh McEnany. I'm not even going to bring up the one that was only there for like 10 days. But you know who I'm talking about, Scaramucci. But I didn't want to bring him up. He was only there for 9 or 10 days. Can we even classify him as a press secretary? But the whole purpose of seeing this is that you really see the double standard. It wasn't long ago. It was only a few months ago that we were dealing with this immigration issue. Even though it was lessened under the Trump administration, we were still dealing with it. And we're seeing how the reporters were treating the Trump administration compared to the Biden administration. Now, to give credit where it is due, are they asking questions about it? Is it constantly in the news? Yes. But you're seeing it kind of being lessened in the news. You're not seeing them always asking questions about it every single day like we were seeing maybe a couple weeks ago. And that is why I'm constantly reporting on it on my show, because I don't want to let this down. This is a huge issue for, I think, a lot of conservatives, a lot of states, and I want to keep pushing the envelope. And I know I'm repeating myself on a lot of things, and I'm sure you're tired as the viewer of hearing me constantly report on this aspect of the issues that are happening at the U.S.-Mexico border. But I think that we can't let this up. We got to keep pushing this because this is a hot button issue. We want that border wall to be built. And Joe Biden's receiving enough pressure right now where, again, as we just reported a couple days ago, that he's talking about continuing construction on the U.S.-Mexico border, continuing building Trump's border wall and filling in the gaps. We all want that. We all need that. And then hopefully at the same time, as he's building that border wall, we can now figure out the policies that we could put in place here to stop this massive crisis that is happening at the U.S.-Mexico border. But it's not just that. It's not just over 171,000 migrants that are coming in just in 1 month. The child migrant crisis that has plagued the Biden administration continued unabated in March, meaning he hasn't done jack shit to solve this issue, with nearly 19,000 new children intercepted. 19,000, that is enough to fill the Staples Center in Los Angeles. That is how many children are coming over unaccompanied, or at least with some sort of smuggler or with somebody. 19,000 new children intercepted and taken into U.S. Border Patrol custody, the single largest number ever recorded. Now, yes, these are people, but I want to talk about it in terms of money. Can you imagine how much taxpayer dollars are spending on this? To feed 19,000 children, to clothe 19,000 children, to give them bedding for 19,000 children, water, utilities, shelter, education, legal fees. Do you know how much money we are talking on a monthly basis that we're just pouring out the window? It's unbelievable. It really is, because not only are we spending astronomical amounts of money on illegal immigration now, but we're also spending we're going to spend astronomical amounts of money on our infrastructure plan. And it's crazy that at a time like this, when you have COVID just happening, meaning not a lot of money coming back into the economy because everybody just got hit upside the head because of government closures, But we also have this issue at the U.S.-Mexico border. Maybe deal with what is happening at the U.S.-Mexico border before you try pushing $3 trillion onto the taxpayer after just spending $2 trillion on a COVID relief package. Why not just get your shit under control first and then talk about spending later? How about maybe spending $2 trillion on a nice, beautiful, right? Like Trump said, beautiful. I can't do a Trump impression. I wish I could. Maybe I'll work on it. But a nice, big, beautiful wall, 100 feet high, maybe 100 feet thick. Go crazy with it. You know what I mean? Put all the technology you need on top of it. Get those nice border protection out there. Give them new uniforms. Give them whatever they need. The most advanced trucks, whatever the heck they need. It's a great investment. If anything, we'll be saving money in the long run over it. But the left doesn't think like that. They just look at us as racist, illegal, I almost said illegal immigrants, racist, xenophobics, whatever they want to call us, they call us that. But I wanted to give an update here on what the numbers truly are now, because now they finally come out that it's not just a challenge. It's not just a little problem. This is a crisis, and we're getting unprecedented, record-breaking numbers here at the U.S.-Mexico border. And now all of you are equipped with that fact. And it's not just the numbers that I wanted to present here, but like I've also talked about, there are people that are dying while making this journey or crossing the U.S.-Mexico border into the United States that are dying, and we just don't hear about them. I did give a report from the Daily Wire how I believe a 9-year-old passed away in the Rio Grande River trying to cross from Mexico into the United States. They tried to resuscitate her, but unfortunately she passed away. And those are just kind of the stories that we hear about. We don't hear about some of these children making this trip and just never making it. I mean, there was a video of a little boy that was caught by the CBP, and he was bawling his eyes out. And if you look around, there wasn't crap around him. I mean, the kid was out in the middle of the desert, just bawling his eyes out, nobody helping him. And you can't help but your heart breaks for this little child. I mean, should he be there illegally? No. But somebody sent him over here, whether it was a smuggler or his parents or somebody made the idiotic decision to do that. And who knows, if that kid was never found, who knows what would have happened to him? Ungodly things could have happened to this child, and I don't even want to go into detail of what could have happened, but we're getting a Texas Ranger here explaining the horrors of finding dead illegal immigrants on his property. This also comes from the Daily Wire. It is written by Beth Bauman. And Beth writes, Texas Ranger Whit Jones on Thursday described one of the horrifying side effects of the ongoing border crisis, finding bodies of dead illegal immigrants on his property. Wouldn't you love just to wake up in the morning, look at the sunset, and you just see a bunch of dead bodies on your front lawn? God, I'm not like laughing. I'm laughing at it just kind of disgust and just disbelief. I'm not looking at it as comedic. It's terrible that there's people dying and you're waking up in the morning on your front lawn and seeing dead bodies on your front lawn. That's just a lovely sight, isn't it? When that doesn't need to happen. Again, I keep saying this. It's an easy fix. You build a damn border wall, you create policies, and you create an image of, hey, you come over here, you're being sent back the same day. I hope you like flying because you're going to get a lot of frequent flyer miles. According to Jones, the geographic location changes the number of bodies that may show up. The terrain and the immigrant's overall destination can determine that outcome. He said he has only found 2 or 3 bodies per year, while his neighbor tends to find roughly 10 illegal immigrants per year. We have a video clip on this. Let's run it.
What do you see on your property, on your ranch?
So what we see, Brian, we're a little bit north of the river, the border with Mexico. And what we end up seeing is we see, and typically what we hear about on the news is people crossing that border. But essentially there's another border that is about 50 miles to the north, and we call it the interior check system, or the interior checkpoint. And so once all these people get across the river, they then now have to make another journey across to this next kind
of like a second border, an interior border. And you say one of your neighbors found about 100 bodies over the years on their ranch. What ages are they? What are they up to?
No, that's correct. We've seen bodies. We don't find this many. It's all based on where you're geographically located and how people travel and where you are as to where the bodies are found. But we find more like 2 to 3. But I mean, I don't know. That's still enough.
Absolutely.
Some people are finding up to, like you said, a neighbor of mine has been finding close to 10 a year.
Wow.
For the last 10 years.
So with these, you say that these are men between the 20 and their 40s. They would never qualify for asylum.
Right now it is.
Right.
Right now it is, Brian. It's not always that way. In fact, right now we're seeing hardly any children or women because of everything that's going on the river. Those people aren't having to make this journey. They are being, they can claim asylum. The women and children can, and they're being bused places right now. Right. There's a real kind of a little bit more of a dangerous situation. You have just kind of single males right. coming up, and it's just there's a sense of fear that exists down here all the time. It's a terrible situation.
It's not fair, and that's why you're looking to try to pass a law to try to stop this smuggling, to put more teeth in the law for what Texas can do to smugglers. What does that law sound like? What does it read like?
Yeah, that's right. So it's a state law. It's HB 687, and we're real fortunate that we got a hearing for it yesterday. And what it does is it basically helps penalize smugglers, and it provides protections for immigrants. And it allows our local law enforcement to do it helps improve the penalty on or strengthen the penalty on trespassing. Yep. And from a state level, and it gives our local law enforcement ability to do more with the situation.
All right, we'll look forward to following about that. Everyone looks at the river and the border, but there's a second border, and you just enlightened us on that. Whit Jones, thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian. Have a good day.
You got it.
That is just mind-blowing. Just the image of having 10 people per year showing up on your front lawn. Now, some people might think, oh, well, that's a pretty low number, only 2 to 3 or 10 people per year. My question is, how many dead bodies do you find on your front lawn per year? Probably none. Some of you probably never seen a dead body in your lifetime, let alone waking up in the morning, sipping on your nice cup of coffee, going out to grab the newspaper. Not that anybody does that anymore, but you know what I mean. You're going out there, and instead of picking up the newspaper, you're finding a dude sitting there dead in front of your front lawn. And somebody has to come pick up that body, and somebody has to pay for that, right? That transportation ain't free. I understand it might be cheap, but the whole purpose is, again, this stuff should not be happening. It's not hard to fix. And the Biden administration has no intention, at least they're presenting of no intention to fix this. Because if they did, in the month of March, you shouldn't have 19,000 unaccompanied children, or at least 19,000 migrant children in your facilities. And it makes sense now, right? These numbers make sense on why they're jamming in 400, 500 people into these pods that are only supposed to hold 200, 250 people max. There's a reason why they look scattered on the floor. There's no room for them because they don't have space for all these people, because you got so many damn people coming in that it's never happened before. And so now you're having this holy shit moment because you're like, I wasn't expecting this because I'm an idiot. I don't know how to run this country. And now you got this huge crisis on your hands, and again, you have no intention of fixing it. And the optics are bad too, right? Now that the numbers are finally released, now you just look even worse than what you were before, because you went on for months going, oh, well, it's the numbers are pretty similar as they were in the Trump administration or in prior years. And now you're looking at it going, no, dude, they're blowing you out of the water. You're nowhere near the numbers in prior years. And so I'm interested to see in this coming week here how Jen Psaki's going to twist this bad boy. And you bet your darn Batushi, that I'm going to be reporting on that. So look out for a reaction video of me just dismantling Jen Psaki. But lastly, we have an article here by the Daily Wire. It says he questioned microaggressions, then his university gaslit him, claiming he was a threat, and suspended him from campus. Now, I'm going to take a long time on this article, folks, so bear with me here. I want you to see what it's like to be on college campuses today, what the education system looks like today, and how they're treating people. There's a reason that I'm going to spend a long time on this, because it is that mind-blowing. Not only is it mind-blowing, it is also extremely scary that you have people running the show in the education systems at universities, and they're handling situations like this. Again, bear with me here. We're going in for a long ride. This is crazy. So let's start off here. It says, In one of the most bizarre campus stories in recent history. You know there's a reason why they're starting off with that sentence. This is bizarre. It is nuts. A medical student at the University of Virginia posed mildly skeptical questions about microaggressions to a university panel. Afterward, his school claimed he was hostile, implied he was disrespectful to authority and a threat to future patients, and began investigating him. As anyone in this situation would, the student was confused and frustrated by the school's actions, rightfully so. The school then used that confusion and frustration to further claim the student was unstable. So it says here, a student attending UAV's School of Medicine attended a panel discussion on October 25th, 2018 regarding microaggressions, a term used to claim unintentionally rude comments are actually bigotry. During that panel, the student asked some pointed questions to presenter Beverly Cowell Adams, an assistant dean at UVA, so she was faculty, about the definition of microaggressions. Here's the description of the exchange. So I can't pronounce the student's last name, so I'm just going to refer to the student as a student. The student says, "Hello, thank you for your presentation. I had a few questions just to clarify your definition of microaggressions. Is it a requirement to be a victim of microaggression that you are a member of a marginalized group?" Adams, the faculty member, said, "Very good question, and no, and no." The student said, "But in the definition, it just said you have to be a member of a marginalized group. In the definition you just provided in the last slide, so that's contradictory." The faculty member said, "What I had there is kind of generalized definition. In fact, I extend it beyond that. As you see, I extend it to any marginalized group, and sometimes it's not a marginalized group. There are examples that you would think maybe not fit, such as body size, height, or weight. And if that is how you would like to see me expand it, yes, indeed, that's how I do." The student said, "Yeah, follow-up question. Exactly how do you define marginalized, and who is a marginalized group? Where does that go? I mean, it seems extremely nonspecific." The faculty member said, "And that's intentional. That's intentional to make it more nonspecific." First of all, what a response, right? Well, that's my intention to be nonspecific, so we can't make sense of what I'm talking about, so you're just more confused at the end of the day. And then, by the way, once you're confused, we're going to say that you're not all there, and we're going to make you're going to have to go and get evaluated by a psychiatric person. You'll see that in a moment. That's why I'm saying it. It's going some crazy, crazy directions here. But you're going to specifically make something nonspecific? Or isn't the intention of giving a presentation so that people can hear and learn from you and make sense of what the hell you're talking about? It makes sense why the student's probably asking questions, because the dude's confused too. After the initial exchange, the student challenged the faculty member's definition of microaggression. He argued against the notion that the person who is receiving the microaggression somehow knows the intention of the person who made it. And he expressed concern that a microaggression is entirely dependent on how the person who is receiving it is reacting. Basically saying it's entirely subjective, that it might not be my intention of whatever I'm saying to you to be offensive, and you're taking it as offensive when my intention is not to be offensive. It's entirely how you take it, and it's purely subjective. The student is 100% correct, which is why microaggressions, I don't want to say it's BS, because somebody could be pissed off and take something the wrong way, but that's your fault, not the person's fault. Continue walking. It's not a big deal. He continued his critique of the faculty's work, saying, "The evidence that you provided, and you said you've studied this for years, which is just one case. I mean, did you study anything else about microaggressions that you know in the last few years?" After Adam's response, the student asked the third question. He asked an additional series of questions. So again, what is the basis for which you are going to tell someone that they've committed a microaggression? Where are you getting this basis from? How are you studying this and collecting evidence on this and making presentations on it? The reporter said an assistant professor who helped organize the panel considered the student's questions to be inappropriate and filed a professionalism concern card. Has anybody ever heard of that before? A professionalism concern card? They filed this against him. It's reported that it's a kind of record of a student violations of university policy. In her complaint, Kern wrote that the student asked a series of questions that were quite antagonistic toward the panel. Again, entirely subjective. This person's basically filing a complaint of a microaggression because the panel might have taken it as a microaggression, that the student was intending to be disrespectful to them. This is exactly what the whole premise was, and this is what the student was trying to clarify. And now, based on what the student was trying to clarify, you're filing a complaint on him for his clarification and saying that it was inappropriate to ask these types of questions or receive more clarification on now what you're freaking hitting him upside the head on. And then you wonder why the dude's confused. Unbelievable. This is where our education system's at. He pressed on and stated one faculty member was being contradictory. His level of frustration and anger seemed to escalate until another faculty member diffused the situation by calling on another student for questions. I am shocked that a med student would show so little respect toward faculty members. It worries me how he will do on his wards. Now, I don't understand why you're making one claim and having an association to another claim here, that just because of how he handled the situation there, that's going to affect maybe another situation for his wards. So it's and not supplying any evidence for that matter of going, well, this is how it's going to be connected to this, and based on this answer, this is how it's going to be connected to this answer based on the wards. We don't need to supply any of that. Again, the more generalized things can be, just like the faculty member doing, the better, because then everybody's confused and then we can never understand what the hell is going on. So that's the leftist thinking there, and we got to go further here, folks, because it gets a little bit more nuttier. If you thought it was bad now, wait till we get into the scary stuff. The concern card, according to the lawsuit, caused other administrators to be concerned about his behavior. An assistant dean from the medical school emailed the student asking to meet, assuring him, that's important. I simply want to help you understand and be able to cope with unintended consequences of the conversation. Okay? It's important to note that. The student informed the dean that he had not shown hostility toward the panel. The student is quoted as saying, "Your observed discomfort of me from wherever you sat was not at all how I felt. I was quite happy that the panel gave me so much time to engage with them about the semantics regarding the comparison of microaggressions and barbs. I have no problems with anyone on the panel. I simply wanted to give them some basic challenges regarding the topic. And I understand that there is a wide range of acceptable interpretations on this. I would be happy to meet with you at your convenience to discuss this further." During their meeting, according to the student's lawsuit, the dean asked him about his views on various social and political issues, including sexual assault, affirmative action, and the election of President Trump. That is extremely weird. Why would you need to do that? And one, you're just a liar at that point, because that is not what you said to the student on what you were going to assure him on. So now you're going in and trying to dig deeper on what you can find about the student, see where his political views lie, and then hit him upside the head, which they end up doing anyways. After this exchange, the Dean of Student Affairs asked for a meeting with the student. At the same time, UVA's Academic Standards and Achievement Committee, whatever the hell that is, just more money being wasted, discussed Kern's concern card, voting to instruct the student to show mutual respect to faculty members and to express yourself appropriately. The committee also suggested the student seek counseling. That is crazy. The dude is just asking for clarifications, whether how he handled it inappropriately or not. And now you're making him seem like a psychiatric ward patient here that needs to go receive counseling. This is how far this crap is going. A month after the panel, the student was informed that he was banned from classes until he was evaluated by a psychologist. The dude was banned for asking questions on a panel that he attended, that he was confused on, that didn't make sense, and rightfully so based on what's being presented in this article. And now the school is taking him as somebody needs to be evaluated by a psychologist. Are you out of your mind? The dude was just asking questions because the person was generalizing things and was not being specific. Thus, it is rightfully so that needs to be asked by the student going, yo, can you be a little bit more specific? Because this isn't making sense. And on my end of things, you're being a little bit contradicting on what you're saying. I need a little bit more clarification. The student repeatedly asked the university officials to clarify what exactly he was accused of, under whose authority his counseling had been mandated, and why his enrollment status was suddenly in doubt, according to the lawsuit. These queries only appear to have made UVA officials more determined to punish him. The student's mounting frustration with these baseless accusations of unspecified wrongdoings was essentially treated as evidence that he was guilty. At his hearing, he was accused of being extremely defensive and ordered to change his aggressive, threatening behavior. The student was suspended for allegedly aggressive and inappropriate interactions in multiple situations. The student sued, alleging UVA violated his First Amendment rights when it retaliated against him for asking unfavorable questions. This is another crazy point here. Not only was the initial generalized premise of the story crazy, then him having to seek counseling for just asking a question. But now check this out. You really want to see where our education system's at? It's all in this one sentence here. UVA attempted to have the case dismissed, arguing in its motion to dismiss that offensive student speech does not enjoy First Amendment protection. That is where these people are at. That is where the heads, the dean, the faculty of these education institutions are at. You are not protected under free speech for just asking a damn question to a panel. That is where we're at, and that is the scary crap that is going on. If you ask a question that they disagree with, and that however they view that question as, even though you're not trying to be disrespectful, even though you're not trying to microaggress them, if they are microaggressed, if they look at that as being disrespectful, or you're talking to them the wrong way, they're going to hit you with a card or a violation. They're going to suspend you from their classes. You're not protected in their mind under the First Amendment. You need to receive counseling. You need to go see a psychologist because they think that there's something wrong with you. And this is the movement that's happening towards conservatives. And that is why I think it was so important to take time to go through this article, because I want all of you aware of what the heck is going on these college campuses. It is nutty. It is scary that somebody's determining you asking a question of you having psychological problems. This is some scary shit, man. Forgive me for cussing, but this really is. Thank God I am not on college campuses anymore, but as an educator, it disgusts me that there's people in our education system that act like this. If he was still being disrespectful, who gives a crap? The dude was disrespectful. He showed up to a panel. If you don't like him, then say, hey, I'm going to move on to the next question. I'm not happy with how you're asking that question. It is you running the panel to make that decision. But for you to hit him upside the head with this crap because maybe in your mind he was being disrespectful, again, maybe he was. Who gives a crap? Move on, man. There's other stuff going on that you can deal with. There's other stuff going on at the university. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's nothing going on at the university and they just wanted to find a conservative to attack, which is why you're following up with these questions with a one-on-one with the student, which was not the initial premise of what you made the conversation or what the conversation was supposed to be about. But this is the stuff that is going on in college campuses, and it's nuts. The left is going to destroy this country from the inside out, and it comes through indoctrination of our children, of our kids, of our students, and it starts with the education system, and it's only going to get worse as generations go on because it's a manufacturing system. I've seen it live as a teacher. There are people saying socialism is good. There's government classes going on saying socialism is good. There's economics classes going on that saying socialism is good. When you constantly have this idea and you're pushing it upon young people and they don't have the wherewithal to go out and research this stuff or find videos like mine or Dennis Prager or Ben Shapiro, The Daily Wire, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, the Hodge twins, Steven Crowder, whoever it is. And that is why it's so important to like these videos so that these videos get pushed out there to young viewers, teenagers, college students, so they can get a different viewpoint other than the viewpoint that they're getting at their university. And I hope that you're saying this stuff is nuts, man. But we have Megan Rapinoe takes aim at Draymond Green after he questions gender wage gap in sports. There's a record number of migrants taken into custody at the southern border in just March alone. Highest number of children migrants ever recorded. Again, that was 19,000. We also reported on a rancher explaining the horrors of finding dead illegal immigrants on his property. And lastly, we have the craziest article in my mind that I think I've ever reported on this show as of yet. A student questions microaggressions, then his university gaslit him, claiming he was a threat and suspended him from his campus. I'll try to keep you updated on what is going on with the lawsuit as time goes on, but that is all the news I have for you today. Please take a moment to hit that like button. If you enjoyed this show, please also make sure you subscribe. I am also on Parler, so you can find me at Bald Brad there. I also have videos over on parlor.com, rumble.com. So join us over there on Rumble as well. And again, I sincerely appreciate your viewership, and I'll see you here next time on The Bald Brad Show.